So
Thank you very much.
this bill has spurred quite a bit of controversy. One of the first was the fact that people are already complaining that is an exact replica of the Singapore bill. Now that shouldn't be a big problem, but people feel that it's like we have not totally made it ours. We've not brought it home. We've not reformed that bill to affect our own realities. Could you respond to that, please?
Thank you very much. Well, you are correct. That is one of the things we have heard people say about the bill. But truth of the matter is that that is the nature of bills the world over. Practice is that if you see a bill or a law, an act in another jurisdiction that suits the same subject matter you seek to take care of in your own country, then you can very well adopt the bill. That is what is done everywhere. Don't have that issue of plagiarism. It doesn't apply at all. So if there's anything people should not say about this bill, it is that we copied the bill. Yes, we saw the situation in Singapore fits our own situation. And what we did was adopt what they did in Singapore and localize it. If you go through the bill, you will see that there is enormous local content in the bill. So it's not correct at all to say that we may imported a bill from Singapore and we didn't apply it to suit our local situation. It's not true at all.
Okay. Before we go into the details of the bill, why is there, and let's help our viewers understand, why is there a need to have a legal backing for all that the government wants to do concerning infectious diseases?
Well, again, it is extremely important, especially in this present day and time, that we do things properly. What we seek to do by repealing inheritance, because that is what the present Quarantine Act is part of our received English law. What we seek to do is to make it fit for purpose for present day Nigeria. There's no way we can just take what was conceived in 1926 and apply it in Nigeria today. So many of the things that were infectious diseases in 1926, such as cholera, plague, smallpox, typhus, all those things some of them have been taken care of. But there's a new genre of infectious diseases, like we all know. Today, we have corona, for example. We've had SARS, we've had Ebola. So there is need to bring our law up to speed. There is need to think of and consider how to tackle present-day realities in terms of illnesses, ailments. So that is the primary reason for us to find it necessary today, now, to reap.
All right.
Okay, so personally, I've been able to, sort of go through what
we inherited in 1926, and bring a new regime of solutions to those problems. So that is what this bill is all about.
Okay.
It is an attempt to repeal a law we have seen that is no longer fit for purpose for present-day Nigeria.
Okay.
So personally, I've been able to, go through most of what the bill says, and I actually like the idea, the general idea of what message that the bill is trying to pass. That is giving NCDC the authority, because of course it is equipped for that, to tell when there's a pandemic and all the other laws, powers that it's been given. But of course, with every bill, there will be controversies. And one of the controversies that Nigerians seem to be talking about is that they feel that there's a sinister agenda, that there's a Bill Gates agenda that Nigeria is trying to, perpetrate, which is maybe this would help in some vaccines that he is going to come up with, maybe a capitalist agenda, and it's not necessarily for our own good. Please, do you have anything to say about that thinking Nigerians are having concerning this?
I hope you got that. Hello? Ooh. I think we lost that. Okay,
Okay,
we
so
might have to call him.
Many people will not get that question you threw at him because you didn't mention the law, the bill
I've
that
heard
is about to be
some
passed.
laughable allegations about conspiracy. Why would Nigeria's lawmaking body, like the National Assembly, we represent the people, we represent the interests of the people? What do we gain if we propose a law that goes against the interests of Nigerians? The truth about it is that the bill is about for both today and for tomorrow. Infectious diseases have come to stay with us, whether we like it or not. Nobody prays for it, but these are things that have to come once in a while. Now, is it good that we are caught hands down when this unfortunate situation comes around? So the only thing we can do is to develop a structure, how to respond, a protocol of when this thing comes, what do we do? As we speak now, most of the things we are doing now in response to coronavirus are things this bill is supposed to take care of. But at present, as we speak now, those things are, there's no law backing most of those things. When you go through this bill, you see lockdown, you see quarantine, but there's nothing presently on the existing quarantine act we have that will strengthen this administration or any administration to tackle infectious disease. It is unpatriotic. It is very disappointing for any Nigerian who has not even seen, who hasn't had the opportunity of looking at this bill, to sit down and say it is the product of a conspiracy theory. Far from it. If anything, this House, this Ninth Assembly should be commended for coming up with this solution. So what is the present day problem and what is likely going to be a future problem? This bill is not about coronavirus. It is about infectious diseases. You go through the bill, you won't see anything on coronavirus. What you will see is how do we respond to infectious diseases? How do we have a framework to tackle infectious diseases? That's all you see about this bill.
Okay, all right.
The bill itself seeks to prevent, number one is to prevent the introduction of infectious diseases into Nigeria.
Right.
The second arm of the bill is to, what do you do? How do you stop the spread of infectious diseases when they get into Nigeria? That is the very singular aim of.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Sir,
Sure.
you know, the reason for the conspiracy is because the bill proposes that it will be compulsory and there will be people that don't take the vaccines be penalized. So that's the reason, and there's a lot of conspiracy out there. So I think that the House of Assembly needs to do, the House of Representatives needs to do more to dispel the already present conspiracy that this is a move to vaccinate the world and reduce the population. Because when you don't give that level of information, people just start thinking more to the story. But the one I have issues with, the one people have issues with, is the sort of draconic part of this, where the law empowers the government to pick a property and make it an isolation center. Like that law, how do we prevent abuse? That's my worry, because one of the things is, it might have a good intention, but how do you intend to prevent abuse of this law that empowers government to take over a private property and make it an isolation center in cases of outbreak of infectious diseases?
Globally, on how. So the point I'm trying to make is that there's even no vaccine for now. All over the world, research is going on how to get a vaccine. So this bill is not discussing any vaccine. What this bill is talking about is mandatory provision. Mandatory provision of vaccines and other things when the need arises. So it's not talking about, like I said, it's not talking about vaccines for coronavirus, but how do we prepare ourselves?
Okay, Mr.
Are you there? Okay, I think we'll have to go on a quick because I actually have one more very important question to ask him. We're going to try to call him. Maybe that'll be clearer. Let's go on a quick break. We'll be right back.
Break down how that is going to work and how do we prevent abuse?
Thank you very much. You see, government has a duty to pass public health laws that improve the well-being of the generality of its people. So in passing the laws, there are certain things you do, there are certain things you don't do, there are certain things that are that must be done in the overall interest of public health. Mind you, we are not talking of just the interest or welfare of one individual. We are talking of the interest and welfare of all Nigerians. Now, in a law like this, and that this is consistent with what operates in every other jurisdiction, there must be penal provisions. There must be sanctions. There must be certain demands on citizens. So these are things we conceive as penal provisions. There's no jurisdiction, there's no country you go to, and you look at their public health law, and you won't see penal provisions. Because if there are no penal provisions, it means you are making it must be mandatory that there is compliance one way or the other. So in looking at penal provisions, because that's generally what you are asking me, you have to look at what is the prohibited act. Then what is the contravention of, what constitutes contravention of the prohibited act? And then what is the sanction or penalty for that prohibited act? Now, if you know the true definition of an infectious disease, you'll find out that it is not something you just leave to the whims and caprices of individuals. Let's take the example of coronavirus that is ravaging the entire world now. If people are not forced to lock down, for instance, what do you think will be the outcome? People will just die all over. So that is why government, in its own wisdom, in trying to protect the public health of its citizens, has to take certain steps. For instance, if a particular location, it could be somebody's premises, is found, for instance, to be infested with infectious diseases, what do you expect government to do? What this law anticipates is that you designate such a place. It could be anywhere. It could be a market. It could be a private residence. You designate it as such and then take the appropriate action. That is what is expected. And it is good we know that this is in the public interest. Government has no interest in victimizing anybody. So the law is not so that people are divested of their property, no. But the law is such that if it would take an individual property to endanger the entire public, then that individual property should be locked down, for example, or should be taken over temporarily until the danger or the disease is taken care of.
Right.
So that's the thing about the question you asked about such places.
Okay, sir. Actually, what we're saying is the bill says it can use a private property as isolation center. So this is not a property that is suspected to be infected, but this is a property and they're looking for isolation center, especially now that we hear the Minister of Health saying that we need more isolation centers. So people are saying, if I have a hotel now and you come and take my hotel and make it an isolation center, what is the, what would I get from this? Because it's a hotel. Many people may say, well, after this coronavirus, I'm not going to that place. Do you know that's where they treated coronavirus? In what way are you going to incentivize people when you take their personal properties for things like that?
Well, again, let me just make it clear to us that there's been a lot of people have not seen this bill, and yet a lot of comments have been made. So certain things that are out there in the public space, if you look at the bill, you might find out that such things do not exist. Now, and again, it's very important. Let people not think that the lawmaking is still subject to certain reviews. Mind you that under Section 6, subsection 6B of the Constitution, the courts, for example, still have the power to strike down any law that does not follow the Constitution. So the point I'm trying to make is that every piece of item in this legislation must comply with constitutional provisions. Nigerians should take very particular note of that.
Right.
That every piece of legislation in this, every piece of item in this proposed bill must comply with the mandatory provisions of the law.
Right.
Because the courts can still override anything that goes contrary to the Constitution. That's
Because of time, I have to throw in a question, because one of my major worry is the fact that it's not the first time we're having infectious diseases in the world. We've had chicken pox, we've had measles, we have vaccines for many of these things. We never had a law forcing people to be vaccinated. We actually appeal to people to get vaccinated. Many people have been vaccinated against meningitis, but other parts of the country, people are still getting meningitis. They didn't take the vaccine. So why suddenly do we think we need a law to force people to take vaccines that the community so far, for many years, we've been appealing to communities to take vaccines, and many of them have actually complied. Others might haven't, but there was not a law forcing anybody to get vaccinated. So that's why people are having issues with this bill.
Okay, so let me make this clarification, and I just hope people will see the difference. There is nothing like forced vaccination in this bill.
Okay.
It's an assurance I am giving you. There is no item in this bill that talks about forced vaccination. What this bill talks about is mandatory provision. What it means is, if there is a vaccine that is discovered that is going to be effective in treating an infectious disease, our CDC should be prepared, should mandatorily acquire such vaccines for the good of the country. It's not good that, assuming there is an outbreak of infectious diseases, that we don't have a protocol of how to even acquire the medicines. Mind you that medicines could be vaccines, they could be tablets, they could be in any form. So people should not be fixated about vaccines. And again, nobody is saying that Nigerians are going to be guinea pigs to be used to test vaccines. No, there's no such thing in the bill. Okay. What the bill merely talks about is mandatory provision.
Right. Okay,
thank you very much.
We have to wrap up here.
So another part that worried people was the fact that the speed with which the bill is being passed. So the first and second hearing at the same time, despite the fact that some members in the House of Representatives said they haven't seen the bill, and the plan was that all of them should have seen it. So would there be a public hearing to get the participation of citizens in this matter?
Hello? Oh, sugar, we lost the call. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up on that. We'll be speaking with the member, House of Representatives, Honorable Igawari Iduma. We'll try to get him to answer that question, because we need a public hearing, actually.
Yes.
Let's go on a break. When we come back, we'll take a quick update from Kano State. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.